to attend the public open house. We didn't have a notification about it, even though we're just 5 or so houses down, but talking to lots of other neighbors, there sounded to be quite a few guarantees that maybe are a little over the top, or maybe not being realistic for this new type of scenario that they would be in, and his same concerns about how this is going to work for them on a larger scale. So my family would also be in opposition to this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin Hawkinson at 5489 Bryant Street, right behind the nursing home, or Haven Homes. And my daughter worked there. We're very familiar with the place. We like it, but I think we're twisting the conversation. We are not against Serenity Village. We just don't think it should be in that neighborhood. As I understand it, the design team that was here a few years ago, and I assume the City Council and the Planning Commission had input. I understand we have a area of the city that is zoned specifically for this type of use in the Gateway District. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't read that. I was just told that. So, so my point is we're not against Serenity Village. We think they should be where the city has already approved their zoning for that type of facility. As far as if it goes in this area, as I said, I told my wife a few weeks ago that I said, I don't think they're going to continue with this application because they said they wanted to go where they were welcome, and I think they got the impression that we didn't want them in that area. And then 2 days later, I get the letter from the city saying informing me of this meeting, and that, you know, in a fair warning that it may cause, it may affect our property values. And I agree with the previous speaker that she said she might have considered a different neighborhood if she'd have known this to begin with. And my point is that if you give them anybody an exception and change these rules, yes, it will affect my property value. So whatever value they're getting is at the cost of everybody that loses a little bit on their property values. You know, I have a similar house a few blocks away from me that was sold recently, similar value and stuff, a similar size, everything to my house. Now, if I was looking and one house was next to a treatment center and the other house was not, I would be willing to go $30,000 higher for the other house. And so my point is, you're probably decreasing my value a good $30,000. I can't swear on the rates, but anyways, again, my main point is we're not against Serenity Village. We think they should be. I think they should be in the Gateway District. And I have a couple questions. First off, the police officer kind of made one of the questions that was contrary to what we were told at the earlier meeting was that they would not have court-ordered people coming to the facility. It was all voluntary, et cetera. And so now this is a little new information that was not presented at the meeting we had a while back. Also, I don't understand, you said the residents, or I would assume you'd call them residents while they're there, patients, whatever you want to call them, if they do not have cars, I was under the impression that they can check themselves out at any time. Well, if they don't have a vehicle, we don't have a lot of taxi service out here. It's pretty difficult for them to check themselves out. So I don't understand that part of it. And somebody else had mentioned to me that they were concerned that we didn't get all the answers that we brought up at the meeting a few weeks back, or maybe it was a couple of months ago now. Excuse me, I'm looking at my notes that I made. I'm sure I'm going to forget a couple things. But, well, I guess my other question would probably be for somebody in the city. If this was not used, if you do not change the rules for this, and it does revert to single-family residential, how many units could you put on that size property? Three. How many? But look at, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly.
Well, okay, we were looking at somebody. We discussed this one day at a group of us, and he said that if you use the same sizes that you've used behind the old MPFC area, I don't know what those streets are called. If you use that size, you could probably get 20 or 30 lots back there.
Yeah, you'd have to comply with the R1 standards, which is a much larger lot.
Okay, that's a different zoning there then?
It is, yeah,
Okay.
that's mixed-use gateway, like you were
Okay,
just.
okay. So, well, that's my point. I guess we're asking to change zoning. And the other question, maybe I'll try to end with this last question, is what makes you think that this is going to be the last request for changes to our city plans or city ordinances, the city laws? I mean, this is a request now. If they don't fill it up a few years down the road, naturally they're gonna come back for more requests. If people can't accept the rules the way they are now, what makes you think they're gonna accept the rules 3 years down the road? So, I'm sure I have more things that I'm forgetting, but thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Kevin Rose, 1509 Prairie Land. We live directly behind the nursing home. And at the first meeting in February, the applicant said that the reason they wanted to come in Maple Plain was because the building was for sale. If that's the only criteria for changing zoning ordinances, why have zoning ordinances? If every time a building's for sale, you're going to consider changing it. So, they also said they had a 30% failure rate with their much smaller units every 6 weeks. So if you take 30% of 65 people every 6 weeks, that's 160 people a year. And they said it's not a lockdown facility, so you can make your own choice there. And Maple Plain does not have a lot to offer them. We have 2 liquor stores, a tobacco shop, and restaurants with bars. Hardly where you want to have people with addictive personalities walking around. Hang on.
Okay.
So I want to know what they offer our community, or is it just a one-way street? And it was my impression, as I heard someone else say that at the last meeting, that if it was apparent that the neighborhood was against the drug treatment center, that they would not pursue it, and yet here we are. And finally, if the nursing home was not there, would we even be having this conversation? In other words, if the drug treatment center had to be built from scratch, would you put it in that neighborhood? I think the answer is no. And if the ordinance is changed and the enterprise fails, as often happens with new ventures, then the door is open to even greater problems. The block is zoned residential, and I see no reason to change it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth Mahan. I live at 1455 Parkview Road, Maple Plain. I've lived here since 1992, and I happen to be an appraiser. So I'm not acting as an appraiser, but I just wanted to give a little bit of perspective for that, because I think a lot of people are worried about their property values. So the questions that I have is, why is the facility not called, it's called a retreat center? So why is it not an institutional facility that has rules and regs provided by the state? That would be my first question, because if it's not regulated, then what is the city's fallback if something happens at the facility? And for safety of our community, we have nothing to fall back on because we have nobody who has a higher power who can regulate this facility. Second is, I wanted to know how long the stay was. Well, if you said it was only 6 weeks, then we have a potential for an extreme amount of people coming and going from our community. And what are they gonna do on the visiting days, which I saw somewhere it was Saturdays and Sundays from 8 to 9 in the morning, or 8 in the morning till 9 at night. So where are those people going to be visiting? And if you have 65 beds and 2 people come to visit, you've got 195 people, potentially every 6 weeks, that are visiting in our community. So if that facility can't house all of those people in a gathering spot, where are those potentially 195 people gonna go? Are they gonna go to our parks? There's 2 parks in the area. Are they going to be utilizing that space? What does that do for the other people in the community that those parks serve? I mean, we've got walking trails around Rainbow Park, we've got playgrounds, we have a nice picnic area for our residents. And so if we have 195 people who are using that area, what does that do for us? Second, or third, another point is this a nonprofit? So if it's not a nonprofit, do they pay city taxes? How does that work? And then the lights on the building, how is that gonna affect the other people in the neighborhood? Do those lights stay on all the time for security purposes? How are some of the houses gonna be affected by that? I know we had that issue with Rainbow Park when they wanted to keep the lights on at the park, and some of the residents didn't like that. But then again, if these people are voluntary at the place, can they leave? Can they go and walk the park at night? Then we have problems with, then we need lights on at Rainbow Park because we're gonna have a lot more traffic. So those are some of the concerns that I found. Also, if it's non-voluntary or voluntary makes a huge difference, because if this is a court mandated facility, then that just opens up another whole can of worms. And then I was wondering about the parking, because how is that gonna affect the people in the neighborhood getting to and from their homes? Delivery trucks being delivered with 69 or 65 people there. With the turnover, that could be an awful lot of delivery trucks that are being delivered for food and equipment and whatnot. So, just a few questions I have. I would think that you would want to maybe write down these questions and have them answered, and maybe have another meeting so that everybody could feel more comfortable with our concerns. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Robin Meckelkey. I'm 5931 Three Oaks Avenue. And I guess I have some questions as well, or just some clarifications. I think I've gotten some contradictory information, and one of my big concerns was that until my neighbor made me aware of this a couple days ago, so I've not had an opportunity to do a lot of prep and do a lot of research like some people have. And as far as the letter that went out, it sounds like there was a letter that went out, but it obviously didn't go out citywide, which I think is a disservice to the rest of the community. So I am very supportive of what they're trying to do. I'm very supportive of the need for these kind of care facilities or these kind of rehabilitation facilities. So I think that's important. But I would have a lot more questions. You know, I would challenge some things that I see as that, you know, I guess growing up in my, going through my professional life and business life, I always had an expression or a saying that says you can't manage what you can't measure. And I have not seen a lot of hard statistics, and I think the 70% success rate, looks at the success side, is wonderful, but I also agree with an earlier comments about how does that expand to this type of facility. And there's no evidence to show us that these kinds of facilities have that kind of a success rate. And having had some associates and people that I've worked with who've had and gone through some of these types of treatments, I can attest to the fact that there's a lot of things that go on in and out of those facilities that are of concern. I go back and I look at the one thing I did able to get a copy of was the comments or letter that was written by our chief of police, raising some concerns, some very valid concerns. So I think there's more information required, in my opinion, for that. So as it stands, I would agree with the earlier gentleman that says, why do we want to rezone this and open this up? This is not a place that you would ideally build that type of facility if you were starting from scratch. So if it's about reuse of that building, then questions like were raised earlier that I don't know we have answers to about, what's the tax impact, the property value impact. So to me, there's a lot more study and research that needs to be done in order for me to support it. At this point, without that additional information, I couldn't support that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hi, I'm Steve Elson. I'm at 1480 Prairie Land Avenue, so we're right across the street from the facility. We're opposed based on all the facts and thought process. It's just the wrong place. It's not the right place for a facility like this. We would not be comfortable. I know our neighbors feel the same way. The traffic and noise would affect the entire community. We have no sidewalks in our neighborhood. We have a lot of walkers. I'm concerned about them. We have, I'm also really disturbed by the mixed messaging of treatment center versus retreat. And I can't get over that because the people in favor of it are claiming it's a treatment center, but we're told it's not a treatment center, it's a retreat. So they're not subject to licensing and regulation that I would think would be required for a facility like that. And I just feel real adamant about our opposition toward it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Howitt, and I live in 1519 Prairie Land Avenue. And one thing I want to reiterate what a lot of people have said, and I want to be very, very straightforward. You all should have let everyone know in Maple Plain about what's going on. Okay? That to me is unacceptable. And I'm sorry, I'm former military. Okay, now, police officer who came here and the other lady who, two of them that I respect what they said about how we should welcome the Serenity Village. I also, me and my wife, we're not discrediting Serenity Village and what they're doing. I belong to the Lord and I believe in His work. However, I don't think this is the right place for this facility. I don't want to have my property, which is right next door, right behind where the parking is. I don't want to smell smoking all summer long. We're trying to put, well, we want to enjoy our backyard. And smoking is going to occur all over, and I have a real problem with that. I also, one other thing, the gentleman, sir, you did a great job on the background. I appreciate it, very thorough. So, I'm gonna reiterate this. Because that was so thorough, we should collect enough data on success rate, what the gentleman just said. And I don't think we have that data. So I don't think we should go in blind. And I'll bet it's tempting to wanna just get this building sold because we obviously don't want a rotting building. But I don't think this kind of thing is right for this neighborhood. Just like the person said, if we were starting from scratch, we probably wouldn't even consider building this. So please, we are very opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay.
I do. My name is Bill James. I live at 5545 Joyce Street, and my question is about with the conditional use permit, if there's issues with non-conformance, what avenues does the city have to deal with those issues, because I've seen that a lot in the past, and it seems to me that there's a lot of cases where, you know, the city's really kind of powerless to fix those issues, because if the or the person that has the permit is not willing to do that, you know, like let's say there's issues with parking or something, how is that taken care of, and ultimately, you know, what can happen then? So is there, you know, some teeth behind those issues or those conditions? So that's something that I'd like to hear about, how that happens, what the protocol for that would be.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Tabitha Bergeson, and I live on 3285 Lake Huey Road in Independence. I've been going to Serenity for 6-7 years now, and what they have done is just absolutely amazing. And I know you guys are really concerned about the not success rate and them failing. You gotta start somewhere. Every single person starts somewhere with going through recovery. It's a step-by-step process. You just gotta give it a chance. I know you guys are worried about your property value. And you guys are probably looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm a young girl and I don't know anything. But you guys gotta give it a chance. Just a chance. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Clares, and I live at 1460 Prairie Land Avenue. So I'm also just on the street parallel to the Old Haven Homes site. And my husband and I are adamantly opposed to the facility. We firmly believe in recovery. We firmly believe in restoration. We firmly believe and have personal experience with how people can overcome alcohol addiction. But we don't feel that this location is the best spot for this facility. If this facility is bringing a proposal to be in our downtown area, we would be in favor of it. However, due to the location in a neighborhood with many, we've had a lot of turnover in homes in our neighborhood. We have a lot of young families and kids again. So because of that, we are not in favor of the location of the facility. We too went home and did a lot of research prior to our meeting they held and then after. We're very, very concerned about the conflicting information that they even shared that night. Questions would be asked and we'd get two completely opposing answers. Can people have cars? No. Oh, but the residents can have cars. Some will have cars. They can't leave. Oh, they can come and go whenever they want to. Those are very different things. That makes it a very different situation. I'm also concerned about the conflicting information. It's called a retreat center, and then it's called a treatment center. And all the statistics we've been given have been in regards to substance treatment. Well, if it's a retreat center and not a treatment facility, so they can get around being licensed by the state, how then is it court ordered? Court ordered treatment facilities have very different rules and regulations. They were unable to share with us how residents would be background checked and vetted. They said that they would not allow certain people with criminal backgrounds in the facility, but again, could not speak to if they'd allow court-ordered people into the facility or not. That was not clearly delineated to us as residents. It's really easy to say, and I could too, like if I wasn't maybe a mom with 3 kids who live, you know, a block away from here, it'd be easy to say, this is great, they do good work. Because you know what they do? In their single family facilities, they've had really good success rates. This is different. This is 65 people, and they told us every 4 to 6 weeks, 12 months out of the year. That's very, very different than 6 to 10 people in a single family home. And it's really easy to say it's a great thing when you don't have skin in the game and your kids aren't in that neighborhood. My backyard butts up to a park. My kids are at the age now where they have the freedom to go out our back door, to play in our backyard. They see their friends from the bus. They can go down to the park and play because I have eyesight on them. That will no longer be an option for my kids. In your application for standards for considering granting a conditional use permit. Number one, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. This will make the park not available to use to my kids. My kids will no longer be able to ride their bike. We call it the short block. You can go on the short block alone. That will no longer be an option for them because of our experience with this type of facility and the things people struggle with in addiction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Clares. I live at 1460 Prairie Land Avenue, just about 1 block. So my wife just eloquently spoke. I caught the end of it. So I had to step away. I had to bring my 14-year-old daughter to softball practice at Orono. I think Steph adequately explained some of the concerns that we have as parents. And I think others within this room have expressed a lot of those concerns as well. So I'm here representing my daughter. I'm here representing the 5-minute conversation that I had in the drive from here to Orono Middle School to drop her off for her 14U practice at softball. She said, first of all, Dad, that meeting is really boring. I don't know how they can do that every day. The joys of a teenager, right? And second, she said, I'm concerned. She said, I fear for safety of leaving my home to walk our new puppy down the street. I'm fearful of my brothers, who's 14, 10, doing the same thing. And as a parent, I'm here to represent them because that's what's important to me and their safety. And so I wanted to give her a voice because she's not here right now.
Thank you. Okay. Let's do the kind of a final, is there anybody else that wants to make a comment or ask a question? I'm sorry? No, we've
No.
had a couple comments from people who weren't a part of the city. Okay, yeah, sure, come on up.
I don't have the paperwork, it's my first town hall meeting, so I apologize.
That's all right, just give us your name and where you are from.
My name is Clinton Livingston, and I am from, I actually live in Minneapolis at 524 37th Avenue North. Actually, that's northeast, I just moved there. So I am a product of what Pastor Jeff and this whole community has done. A little background is I went from working at Wells Fargo, their corporate building, to sleeping in the woods because of my addiction within the same week. I grew up with addiction. I never understood it. I thought it was a choice. It really is not. I've finally experienced that it is not a choice. And these are good people. Probably actually some of the best people I've ever met with their heart. I would not be here today if it wasn't for this community. 2017, Pastor Jeff came up to me at one of his meetings and he budded some hope for me. He came up to me and said that God put this on my heart to tell you that you're gonna make it. I didn't that time, but I knew where home was. So I came back, and I'll be coming up on 3 years sober here. And this is just the beginning. I'm with this camp for life, because I see what they do, and whatever they touch is golden. I just want to ask you guys to possibly consider, with each car that comes in the traffic, how many lives are you saving by allowing that? With that, I'll pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I need to fill out anything? Paperwork?
No, you're okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're good, thanks. Okay, yes.
Mary Jo Steffenhagen at 5464 Bryant Street. We've been there for 43 years. So when we moved in, the nursing home was there, and we put up with their violations of their conditional use permit, meaning the garbage truck would come at 5:30 a.m., beep, beep, beep. We've had semis rolling by. I have to say they were fairly respectful. We're not against the people, the residents that want to come into this facility, but the employees bother me. We've seen them running late for work, and they are driving 40 miles an hour down and only braking 2 houses before they turn into the parking lot. I don't want that anymore. We've not had that since the nursing home moved, and it's been very nice. We have young children down the block. We have dogs all over. We have no sidewalk, but you can't control a 2-year-old anyway. And we don't need employees leaving the parking lot and looking at their cell phone while they drive 3 houses by. So when you speak of injurious to the property owners, we have now experienced what it's like not to have somebody in that facility. And I really, really do not want to go back. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Plus, one more thing.
Yeah.
When we were at the meeting at the nursing home, we heard some things like it was going to be 50% chemical use, and then there was other rehab, gambling or marriage. Today, they're speaking that it's just for treatment of rehab chemical dependency. And I have I have a little problem with that kind of doublespeak. They also told us at that meeting it was not going to be court-ordered people. Tonight, we're hearing it very well could be, especially by that police officer. The smoking issue was addressed, and they said that their patrons would stay in that courtyard, which isn't a very big courtyard. What about the employees? The nursing home employees have been smoking in the back lot, so all the neighbors along Prairieland Avenue have had to put up with smoke that they didn't ask for, other than shutting their doors and windows. And we all know what Minnesota summers are like. We want to enjoy them. I live on Bryant Street. That's one of the main thoroughfares to get to this facility. And if you're talking 65 residents can have visitors between Saturday and Sunday, I don't want that traffic. I really don't. I'm not against rehab centers. Our church has supported Teen Challenge for years, and we want recovery, but we don't want it in our neighborhood like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
My name is Jeff Hill from Crystal, Minnesota. I'm the pastor that they're referring to. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for the respect of the concerns. It was very respectful, and I'm grateful for that. I don't want to be out of order to answer the questions that were asked, and I'm a big believer in relationships and being upfront, and I know that was challenged about our integrity, and I would love to answer those questions, and maybe you give me direction on how we can do that going forward in a written format we've been documenting the questions that were written down. But to answer your questions, even in the conditional use that was submitted by the Planning Commission, there was something in there that talked about no more than 15 people that are not residing there at the building at any time. We can accommodate that. It's not our way only. We're here to hear what you think. We're here to learn from the Planning Commission. We're here to respect the city. To answer your question, the officer from Minneapolis that spoke, that caused a lot of confusion. There will not be court-ordered people here. What's the difference between a treatment center and a retreat? The retreat is private pay. So no disrespect to people who do not have funds to go to a center like this, but it also attracts a different level of willingness, a different level of people that want it. To your point, how will the people get around? We will have vans on site. I don't have all the answers because I'm not that smart to remember all your questions, but those are questions I want to answer because they're important ones. They're very important questions. And I believe that we have submitted a document. I don't know personally the format of where it resides for the public eye, but every one of those questions were documented that we had at our open house that we were asked to have for you, your viewing. I don't want to sound like we're contradicting anything. That's not who we are. I understand your concerns that this is new when it comes to a scale of this nature. Currently, we have 109 beds in different locations. Yes, is that a different platform? Absolutely. But I would ask you to ask yourself the question, is it easier to control one location or 12 with 109 beds? As far as transportation goes and things of that nature, you know, my heart is not to disrupt your neighborhood. There will not be people, one thing was brought up that, you know, criminal backgrounds. We met with the chief. We've talked to him of the concerns that he has. We will have a vetting process, but these are all questions that I would love to answer. And I know this isn't the platform or the time to do it, but I would love an opportunity to answer these questions. And I believe there is documentation out there already where we already have. But I want to clear up any misconceptions. I would like to, but mainly for the ones that were opposed, they weren't being disrespectful. They're just being honest. And I respect that. And I just want to thank you for the level of respect and even the preface, the preface that you said, we believe in what you do. Because every day of the week, I fight for those that can't fight for themselves. Every day of the week, we supply food for communities. Today I had a meeting with Feed My Starving Children, the CEO. We're fighting for what's going on overseas. I understand why you don't want this in your backyard, but we're just proposing something. That's all we're doing. But I'm just so grateful tonight that you, and all I can go is give you references. They don't want to get called, like to do with a neighboring treatment center. What's the difference between a retreat center and a treatment center? Absolutely. Concerns, no regulations, none of that. We've had that for 18 years. Call the Crystal Police Department. Call the Robbinsdale Police Department. Call the Brooklyn Park Police Department. Call the mayors. Ask them how many times they've been out to our facility in 18 years. I'm not here to make any promises. The word guarantee was stated tonight. I'm not here to make any guarantees. I can just tell you what has happened for 18 years. I can tell you what has happened with the neighborhoods we're in. I can tell you what has happened with the law enforcement. So I think what Sergeant Andrew was saying is that's his world, court ordered. That's Minneapolis. What I believe he was also saying is his affiliation with Serenity Village is, and I say this with confident humility, but it's been seamless. How can we manage a platform of this size? I'm also in the business realms and stuff of that nature, and I can tell you this, we'll give it our best. But I just so want to thank you. Thank you for the respect. Thank you for the concerns. They're valid. There's no question about that. But one thing I really want you to hear in my heart is I want you to have accurate information. I heard conflicting information tonight. I think in our open house, it was not like this. I think it was a little more emotional, rightfully so. People are concerned. People are concerned. All that being said, I just want you to have the facts. I don't want to have misconceptions. So I guess I'm looking, maybe we can spearhead it. I'm a man of order. But all that being said is, all I can go from is history. 18 years of history. Someone made the mention of 6 weeks with a 30% failure rate. That's not true. Our statistics are based off several years. It's a little different to manage 109 people without programming in place, people that are going to work, versus programming in place. And yeah, absolutely, I wouldn't want cars coming in my neighborhood. I wouldn't want smoke in my backyard. I wouldn't want any of that. So I just wanted you to hear from my heart on maybe some clarity, and we're here to answer questions. We're also here to learn.
Well, we have we have the rest of the meeting to do all of those
Okay.
things.
I'm sorry if I'm out of order.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
you're fine, but you'll have the opportunity,
Okay.
I think, to answer some
Well,
more
thank you very
specifics.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is the last call. Anybody else? Okay.
Hi, Connie Francis, 1445 Hallgren. I know some, maybe most of you saw the exchanges going on in social media with regards to the Vinland Center. I used to work there many years ago. I've been in touch with them. Their purpose in life is completely different than Serenity Village. Yes, Vinland has police there often and the fire department. They're dealing with people that have disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, on top of addiction, people that are court ordered. Vinland gets paid by the county to help these folks. That's completely different from this program. So you're comparing apples to oranges. Don't do that, okay? I worked at Vinland when I was in high school and college, and I have volunteered there, and I have gone and done programs there with the people. My brother's on Loretto Fire Department, and he tells me about the calls they get. It's in the weekly Pioneer of calls up there. A lot of it has to do with these people that have traumatic brain injuries. Your brain doesn't function right, and you put addiction on top of that, and it's a totally different ballgame. And Vinland works with the county. They have locations downtown. They bring people out to Loretto to do their thing, to get better, to finish out their sentence, and then they get returned to society. So please don't compare the two. They're on different levels, different programs. Okay? Vinland, I'm passionate about Vinland because of the work that I did there. And reading about Serenity Village and what they're proposing, yeah, maybe Haven Homes isn't the right location because it is plunked right in the middle of a neighborhood. But let's hear out Pastor Jeff and what he has to offer us. Let's work with Chief Krales so that the police department and the fire department are happy. And maybe we need to have another meeting with all the residents invited so that Pastor Jeff and the people that he has helped can tell us what it was all about. Because unless you've walked in their shoes of addiction, you don't know what it's about. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll close the meeting, the public hearing meeting. It's 7:37. Thank you.
Could I request a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Oh, that's right. I do this wrong every time. I need a motion to close the meeting.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Now we'll officially close the public hearing at 7:37. Okay. Okay. I want to thank everybody for your comments and your questions. I think they are also questions and comments that, as we've gone through and read the material and heard all of the information, we have similar questions and/or concerns, so hopefully. What this will do is we, the Planning Commission, have to make a decision, as Mark had pointed out. First and foremost, does the zoning get changed? If we, as a group, said yes, that the zoning should be changed, Then we go into determining what the CUP, the conditional use permit, would be for the facility. And what's decided is that if, however it's decided, for or against, or continue on, or don't continue on, our decision goes to the city council. And so they then take this up and look at it, look at all the same things that we're looking at, and they're the ones, as elected officials, that make the final decision as to whether or not the zoning does get changed and/or a CUP is applied to it, so whether or not the applicant is successful or not. So there will be a decision tonight by the planning commission, but there's still more of the process that needs to go out to the city council.
Michelle, I think we should all go around and say who we are and where we live.
Okay.
I'll go first. Adam Ruland. I live at 1495 Wyman Avenue.
Barb Rose, 1509 Prairie Land Avenue.
Mardell DeCamp, 5435 Main Street.
I'm Stephen Scherson, 4914 Drake Street.
Michelle Bliss, 1480 Helgren.
Jared Betterman, 5375 Joyce Street.
Mike Melton, 1539 Hallgren.
Caitlin Cahill, 1775 Bud Street.
No.
I'm not on the
don't
plan.
need to. Yeah, good. Okay, so, so some of the questions that you had, Mark, that, you know, looking at, one of the first things that we have to think of or to look at has to do with, looking at whether or not we do want to amend the ordinance. And, funny you should ask that question. In order to do that, and there have been some good points from people here that actually have helped me to kind of think through some things too. But in order to look at amending the zoning, I come back to looking at what kind of facility is this going to be? Because it is sitting in amongst only homes. And so is it a retreat center? Or is it, as you had written here or had suggested the wording, institutional residential care facility? And so one of my first kind of like, what do we do kind of things has to do with, if I'm looking at institutional resident care facility, that says treatment center to me. And having in a past life worked in such a place, that's a whole different ballgame than a retreat center or a spa where I just always think of, like, mud packs and, going in, getting glamorous and things like that. I appreciated in particular the people who brought up, if this was the first time, or they were going to build something, would we put this facility there? And
Michelle,
it comes back to.
I want to remind you, as well as the audience, that the thing that came first was the nursing home.
Yes.
Before that went in there was nothing almost to the east of that. All those homes are new. Bryant Street did not go through. There was no Wyman. There was no Joyce. There was no Prairie Land. There was no Clayton. I mean, you name it. All of those homes are new after the nursing home.
Right. And you can look at the nursing home as being someone's home as they were aging. So I can look at that way.
Michelle, will you pull your speaker down so we
Oh.
can hear you?
Does it go down?
No, no, yeah, there.
There you go.
Something just blinked. Can you still hear me?
Now we can.
Maybe it wasn't on.
No, you didn't have it down.
Oh, okay. So in my mind, it's one of those things where, it's been brought up also that we have different parts of the city that we went through, looking at comprehensive plans, looking at, the Maple Plain design guidelines, all of the things that we've done through these last years, to come up with a decision about how we will zone Maple Plain. And, with that being a residential area, I don't think it is the best place amongst all of the young kids, the seniors, one of whom is me. So I think that, and because we do have places in the city where we have designated that, everything from, the mixed use, it wouldn't necessarily even have to be in the Gateway area. It could be in, the Bud. But I do appreciate that that means spending additional monies in order to build a building. And I don't know how to get past some of the things that I have in my head, worrying, concerned about some of these things. If we're looking at an institutional residential care facility, that implies treatment. And I appreciate calling something a retreat center, but in my mind, that's just something that you're gonna put on a brochure. You're treating people. You're changing or hoping to help them change behaviors. That's treatment. And considering the alcohol or drugs or losing your job, you have people who are in stressful situations who I admit, because they are paying for it themselves, that they have more of a reason to be successful in it. But I don't know that it's the place to change a residential area. And to Mark's point, when he was going through, I want people to understand that it wouldn't be changing the R1 district just for that Haven Homes old building. It would change for every single solitary R1 category in the city. And although we don't have a lot of lots, you're right, that are, 2+ acres, we do have some lots in this town that are very decently sized and could be joined. And I'm unwilling to change a zone or go against all of the things that we've done over these years, the comp plan, the guidelines, having gone through and done the zones. I don't see this as a good fit for that. I have other points as we go through this, but somebody also mentioned, if we were going to look at some of these things, that you'd have to be able to meet every single one of the criteria. And I don't see that happening. So I'll pause here for other comments from my colleagues to go on.
Yes, I have a couple of comments.
Sure.
That's okay, madam.
Can I make a statement quick?
Sure.
Yes, he has to
Yes,
leave.
please, yeah.
He has to leave.
Yeah.
Gary Carrell's the police chief for West Hennepin Public Safety. Thank you for all coming out. I don't want to walk out of this very important meeting and everybody on social media and say, well, the chief walked out at 10 to 8. So, yeah, unfortunately, the open house on February 17th was the opening day of our Citizens of Police Academy. So I had to walk out of Serenity Village's open house early. And then now tonight is our graduation night, which starts at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to leave, but I'll leave you with a few things just for me. My door's always open. A couple ways to get a hold of me. Number one, call our office, 763-479-0500, or West Hennepin at westhennepin.com. Goes directly to me. So just think West Hennepin Police at westhennepin.com, or you can call my cell, 612